Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Missouri Lawyers Awards 2021, brought to you by Missouri Lawyers Media. Now, give a warm virtual welcome to your host, Liz Irwin.
Welcome. I'm Liz Irwin, publisher of Missouri Lawyers Media. What a delight to have so many viewers showing support for this year's honorees for the Missouri Lawyers Awards. With each year of celebration, we are inspired by the quality of work of our honorees. And while relevant health concerns have shifted our program to a virtual event this year, its format does not distract from the celebration of the exceptional work we will highlight today. In fact, we encourage you to help us make this an interactive program. You can do that by joining us on social media at hashtag MLM2021MLA. Post your comments and cheer on your colleagues. And to our honorees, post your photos too. We want to see you holding your award with your friends, your family, whoever inspires you or supports you in your work. We want to socially engage and celebrate today despite our distance limitations. And while we aren't sure when we may all safely come together again in a large group to celebrate and network face-to-face, one thing is clear. Now more than ever, there is a need to recognize and thank Missouri's legal professionals who continue to lead during this difficulty. For us, this special honors event is our traditional start to the new year with a nod to the past year's accomplishments. But this celebration, through a continued evolution, is also influenced by the totality of a career in many of our individual awards. The difference made in 2020 and the subsequent influence on the legal profession helped to guide us through the decisions we make in selecting many of our honorees. That impact may be measured in big verdicts or landmark decisions, or it may represent a tenure of consistent, quality legal work that earns the honor. So today, we recognize a wide range of professionals from across the state and from across the political and legal spectrum. And before we share the details of each of these honorees, it's with great pleasure that I introduce another group of distinguished professionals, our sponsors. We recognize them too for making a difference. Without them, this celebration would not be possible. Please join me in thanking first our VIP sponsors, Brian Cave Leighton Paisner, Levy Craig, Downey Law Group, and Gray Ritter and Graham. Our celebration sponsors, Siegfried Bingham, Henricks Law Firm, and our award sponsor, Hush Blackwell. We so very much appreciate their support. Again, without our sponsors, this event would not be possible. And you'll see and hear from many of our sponsors later in the program through shout-out videos they've created to celebrate their colleagues. So stay tuned for those. Again, thank you. Listing and announcing our verdicts and settlements rankings. Those are not presented in video format because they are case profiles listed by rankings, and all attorneys who worked on those cases will be presented in the narrative. Of course, all MLA honorees and their professional accomplishments are featured in a special awards publication that was included in the February 8th issue of Missouri Lawyers Weekly. And our top verdicts and settlements will be featured in the February 15th issue of Missouri Lawyers Weekly. So with that quick programming moment, I'm honored to begin the introductions. In selecting our influential appellate advocate honor recipients, we look to the biggest issues on appeal and the lawyers behind them. Some made headlines, some moved forward quietly, but all had an impact on the law and the people involved.
Introducing our honorees for Influential Appellate Advocates. Kane Carpenter was identified by an eyewitness shortly after a robbery had been reported in the area. After the defense was unable to provide an expert witness on the nature of such eyewitness testimony, Assistant Public Defender Rosemary Percival launched an appeal.
There were factors that jurors would not automatically know. They wouldn't intuitively know that the stress of the situation, of the robbery, of looking at a gun, makes the eyewitness's identification less reliable.
While the court argued that cross-examination of the witness would have been sufficient, Percival addressed the issue this presents.
Most of the time, an eyewitness truly believes that they are giving an accurate, reliable identification. The problem is that they're mistaken.
After Rosemary was able to provide mounting scientific evidence on the issue, the Supreme Court concluded the defense's expert was reliable and would have helped the jury evaluate the eyewitness testimony. She hopes the ruling will help prevent further wrongful convictions in the state.
Mistaken eyewitness identification is the leading cause of wrongful convictions. And now defendants will have a tool for showing juries that these identifications are not as reliable as they naturally assume them to be. So hopefully it will make a big difference in preventing wrongful convictions in Missouri.
In 2018, a toxic tort case resulted in a $4.69 billion verdict for a group of 22 women who claimed they had contracted ovarian cancer from using Johnson & Johnson talcum powder. Thomas B. Weaver was on the appeals team in April of 2020, representing Johnson & Johnson.
It was fundamentally unfair to try the claims of 22 plaintiffs at the same time in the same trial, and that both affected the jury's assessment of liability and also substantially increased the damages in the case.
Weaver argued that the 17 out-of-state claimants should not have been included.
17 of the plaintiffs were from out of state, and 5 were from in the state, so there were challenges to the propriety of the court hearing those 17 plaintiffs' claims at all in Missouri.
Weaver posited that these factors, along with the varying conditions of the plaintiffs, rendered the jury unable to fairly assess the individual claims.
Even though you had some plaintiffs who had to go multiple chemo treatments over a 10-year period and then died. And then you had plaintiffs who had been diagnosed, went through a year of treatment, and had been cancer-free for 25 years. And they got the same amount of money.
On June 23rd, the Missouri Court of Appeals agreed, ruling that the court was wrong to find Johnson & Johnson liable for out-of-state claims and reducing the overall damages by half to $2.1 billion.
I was one part of a large group of people who contributed to this appeal in significant ways and leading ways. And so I just don't want to put too much of the light on myself, because this involved the input of a great number of people from more than one law firm.
In 2016, Eve Shearer brought a liability suit worth $28 million against medical manufacturers C.R. Bard and Boston Scientific, claiming her chronic pelvic pain and incontinence was the result of the use of their devices.
I know it was the first case in the country tried against 2 separate pelvic mesh manufacturers, and it was an unusual circumstance because the woman had been actually implanted with 2 different devices. We needed to get the jury to understand that these products are actually recognized as being the gold standard by surgeons who perform these procedures every single day.
When the suit proved unsuccessful, Robert Adams and Ray Price were tasked with defending the verdict from claims of a mistrial, brought on the grounds of a violation of Section 491050.
Which allows witnesses to be cross-examined with prior criminal conviction. The situation here was that there was a prior conviction of the corporation, but not of the witness.
The Missouri Supreme Court ultimately ruled that C.D. Bard President John Whalen's testimony was not subject to the prior convictions of his employer, and thus maintained the verdict.
Essentially, the court said that cross-examination with a prior criminal conviction is to test the witness's credibility. Since this witness did not do anything wrong, it would be improper to test his credibility with something he did not do.
The Supreme Court addressed an unopened issue or an unresolved issue about the application of the rule, and Judge Price cited at 491.050, whether you can use a conviction of a corporation to impeach the credibility of an individual witness, and they answered that question with no. So I think it was precedent setting.
Congratulations to our influential appellate advocate honorees. Each of you watching today has a very important role in our live stream virtual event. This is an interactive event, as I said earlier, so as you post to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, using hashtag MLM2021MLA, many of your comments and some of your photos will appear live on our screen in the live stream. This is how you can interact with other guests and virtually applaud for the honorees. We have two broad types of Missouri Lawyers Awards. There are those awarded based on a nomination process where our editors and I make the selections. Then we have those awards based on the numbers, our Verdicts and Settlements Awards. Those are derived from the rankings in our Verdicts and Settlements database. To present those awards is Cindy Lash, our editor.
To win a significant trial victory, you need skill, tenacity, and luck. You also need a judge, a jury, and a courtroom, and in 2020, those were in short supply. The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly made litigation a challenge, but during the past year, Missouri attorneys still managed to find ways to achieve verdicts, settlements, judgments, arbitration awards, and defense wins of all types and sizes. Today, we honor the Missouri attorneys who won the largest cases by dollar value in Missouri courts in 2020, as reported to Missouri Lawyers Media. In fifth place is the case of Salerno versus MPI Management. In this case, a federal jury in Kansas City awarded more than $4.9 million to a former shopping center manager. Rosemary Salerno alleged she was fired for reporting wrongdoing at the Zona Rosa shopping center, and that the company filed a needless lawsuit against her after she was terminated. Congratulations to Rick Ciro, Athena Dixon, Raymond Dake, Ryan McEnany, and Eric W. Smith of Ciro Smith Dixon. In fourth place is the case of S&H Farm Supply Incorporated versus Bad Boy Incorporated. S&H used to sell Bad Boy lawnmowers at its southern Missouri stores, but the two companies had a falling out and stopped doing business. S&H said the lawnmower maker had breached the sales contract and that it violated a Missouri state law that protects retailers of outdoor power equipment. A federal jury agreed, awarding nearly $5.9 million in damages. After trial, the judge awarded fees and costs that brought the total to $6.5 million. Congratulations to Greg Whiston, Shannon Johnson, and Curry Sexton of Siegfried Bingham. In third place is the case of Church versus Case New Holland Industrial of America. Wayne Church had just opened a business repairing heavy machinery. While working on a skid steer brought in by his first customer, the machine's 475-pound cab fell on him and crushed him. The lawsuit claimed there was no way to tell that the flimsy latch that held the cab in place was broken. A Henry County jury agreed and awarded the family $13 million. Congratulations to Chandler Gregg and Nick Smart of Strong Garner Bauer. In second place is Bays versus Biomet Incorporated. In this case, a federal jury awarded $21 million to a woman who alleged she was injured by a defective hip implant device that the suit claimed was rushed to market. The verdict is believed to be the largest of its kind in the country. Shortly after the verdict, a juror tested positive for COVID-19, causing a 3-week delay in the rest of the proceedings. Congratulations to James O'Leary and Michael Quillen of O'Leary, Shelton, Corrigan, Peterson, Dalton, and Quillen. And in first place is Bader Farms Incorporated versus Monsanto. In this case, a federal jury awarded $265 million to a peach farm that alleged its trees were killed or damaged by a herbicide that drifted from neighboring farms. The verdict consisted mostly of punitive damages and was even larger than the plaintiff's attorneys had hoped it would be. A judge reduced the punitive damages after trial, however, leaving the plaintiffs with $75 million. The case is now on appeal. Congratulations to Billy Randles, Bev Randles, and Angie Splitgerber of Randles and Splitgerber, and to Ben Mook and Tracy George of Davis George Mook. While jury trials faced months or years of delays during the pandemic, settlements have become an even more attractive way to resolve cases. Many settlements are never reported at all, and many of those are confidential. These cases represent the largest settlements reported to or discovered by our reporters in 2020. In fifth place, we have a tie. In Mason versus C.R. England Incorporated, a state trooper injured during a traffic stop reached a $9 million settlement. The trooper was in his patrol car on the shoulder of Interstate 70 when he was rear-ended by a tractor trailer. The suit claimed the truck driver failed to move over, even though the car's lights were activated. Congratulations to Christopher Dixon of the Dixon Injury Firm. Also in fifth place is a $9 million settlement for the family of a woman killed in a crash on Interstate 70. A truck driver failed to notice traffic stopped for an accident ahead and crashed into the back of several vehicles. After alleging that the truck driver was too fatigued to drive safely, the family reached a confidential settlement. Congratulations to Tim Dollar and Josh Becker of Dollar, Burns & Becker, and Nick Hinrichs of the Hinrichs Law Firm. We also have a tie for the third largest settlement of the year. Both are confidential settlements resolved in Missouri courts for $15 million. In one case, a group of plaintiffs injured in a head-on collision resolved their claims against the driver who hit them. The driver fell asleep and crossed the center line of a 2-lane road. Congratulations to A.W. Smith of the A.W. Smith Law Firm. In the other case, a young man who suffered a severe brain injury in a T-bone collision resolved claims with multiple insurers. The plaintiff was a passenger in a friend's vehicle that struck another car, causing his head to hit the windshield. Congratulations to Amanda Murphy and Sean Falvey of Goldblatt Singer. In second place is Hornbeck versus Orshelm Farm and Home. In this class action suit, plaintiffs alleged that a type of tractor hydraulic fluid was misleadingly labeled and deceptively marketed. They reached an $18.25 million settlement with the Farm Supply Store and Citgo Petroleum Corporation. It's one of a series of victories the attorneys have won involving 303 tractor fluid. Congratulations to Tom Bender and Dirk Hubbard of Horn, Aylward, and Bandy, Brian T. White of White, Graham, Buckley, and Carr, and Clayton A. Jones. And in first place is a $400 million settlement for a group of farmers whose crops allegedly were damaged by the herbicide dicamba. The dicamba herbicides litigation was a multi-district case in federal court in St. Louis involving farmers from many states. They resolved their claims as part of a $12.1 billion global settlement with Monsanto, which is now part of Bayer, for claims involving other herbicides as well. Congratulations to Don Downing of Gray, Ritter, and Graham of St. Louis and Bev Randalls of Randalls and Splitgerber. These are cases where the lawyers had to persuade a judge or an arbitrator, rather than a jury, of the amount that was owed. In fifth place is MB versus Tidball. The most important part of this case was resolved in 2019 with a non-monetary settlement intended to keep Missouri state agencies from overprescribing psychotropic drugs to children in foster care. Following the settlement, attorneys from the public interest groups and the law firms that aided them sought to recover their attorneys' fees and costs from the state. A judge approved most of their request and awarded $3.3 million. Congratulations to John Amon of the St. Louis University Legal Clinic, who worked on this case with out-of-state attorneys from Children's Rights Incorporated, the National Center for Youth Law, and Morgan, Lewis, and Bacchius. In fourth place is the case of Rasmussen versus SRJS Incorporated. In this case, a judge awarded $8 million to a woman who suffered a traumatic brain injury when she was hit head-on by a drunken driver. The case has prompted additional litigation involving the insurance company for the bar that served the driver. The insurer says it should have had a greater role at the trial where the damages were determined. Congratulations to Larry Wright of Criterion Law, Annette Griggs of Griggs Injury Law, and Andrew Leroy of Bautista Leroy. In third place are two arbitration awards issued on the same day and involving the same facts that add up to $20 million. In Barnett and Taylor versus Columbia Maintenance Company, an arbitrator found in favor of a Black employee of a janitorial company and his supervisor who had refused orders to fire him. The arbitrator called them the most egregious and blatant discrimination cases he'd ever seen. Congratulations to Gretchen Myers of the law offices of Gretchen Myers. In second place is McCaig versus Tracker Marine Boat Center. This class action lawsuit involved allegations that the defendant company had charged illegal document fees on boat sales contracts. It went on for 11 years in both state and federal court and involved trips to both the Missouri Supreme Court and the 8th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. It finally ended last year in a judgment worth more than $25 million. Congratulations to Steve Garner, Chandler Gregg, and Nick Smart of Strong Garner Bauer, David Baylord and Damian Struzzi of Baylord, Billington, Dempsey, and Jensen, and Chip Robertson of Bartimus, Frickleton, Robertson, Rader. And in first place is Fuentes versus KMTEH Realty 8. In this case, a judge sided with the tenants of the Ruskin Place apartments in Kansas City, which have been the subject of extensive complaints for substandard living conditions. The judge awarded $52 million in damages against the landlord company and apartment's previous manager, calling their conduct outrageous and reprehensible. She later tacked on attorney's fees and costs, bringing the total to $62.5 million. Congratulations to Greg Lay, Andrea M. Nurenshield, and Nicholas Lay of Gregory Lay, PC. Now we turn to the largest reported defense wins of the year. Calculating the size of a defense victory can be difficult. We take into account a variety of factors, including the amount of the plaintiff's last pretrial demand, the amount of damages that were alleged, and, with some skepticism, the amount the plaintiff asked the jury to award. Our 5th and 4th place winners go to the same lawyers. Both are among a handful of cases that were tried in Greene County during the pandemic. In Kaplinger versus Rahman, the jury ruled in favor of a doctor who used a bone growth product during surgery. The plaintiff experienced excessive bone growth from the bioengineered bone graft device and had to have another procedure to correct it. The plaintiff requested more than $5 million from the jury. And in Wilson versus New Prime Incorporated, a jury cleared a truck driver in a fatal crash on an Oklahoma highway that was obscured by smoke. Though the trial was in Missouri, the case was tried under Oklahoma law. Part of the defense was that the farmer who had caused the smoke by burning his fields bore significant responsibility in the crash. The case involved a $1.25 million pretrial settlement offer, and the plaintiffs sought between $3 and $5 million from the jury. Congratulations to Brian Malkmus and Kristen O'Neill of the Malkmus Law Firm, which defended both cases. In third place is the case of Breads versus Bush and Hunt Enterprises. The defendant runs the Dicky Doo Barbecue, which was accused of over-serving alcohol to a man who later drove into a tree. The driver died, and his girlfriend suffered a traumatic brain injury and numerous broken bones. The jury, however, sided unanimously with the bar. The case involved a $1 million pretrial settlement demand. The plaintiff claimed $400,000 in medical bills and $1.1 million in future damages, ultimately requesting $4 million to $6 million from the jury. Congratulations to Jacqueline Kinder and Brendan Sanders of Brown and James. In second place is Burry versus Western Rubidoux Incorporated, a case in which the defense not only fended off the plaintiff's claims, but also won an award of its own. The plaintiff sued his family's commercial printing business and its clients, alleging he'd been cut off from the company in a dispute over an online fulfillment store he'd created. A federal jury denied his claimed $3 million in damages. It also awarded more than $308,000 to the defendants in a counterclaim against the plaintiff. Congratulations to Daniel Blagan and Brianna Spackler of Spencer Fane, both of whom were with German May at the time of trial. Peter Knops of Knops Law, Sean Colligan and Bryce Lanford of Stinson, and Nicholas Clifford and Kelly Meredith of Tucker Ellis. And in first place is the case of Spire versus USIC Locating Services. This defense judgment stems from the explosion of a Kansas City restaurant due to a gas leak. A judge said the locating company wasn't responsible for settlements that Spire had paid in the litigation that followed. Although the exact amount of those settlements is sealed, court filings indicate it was somewhere in the neighborhood of $75 million. Congratulations to David Helms and Ben Mooneyham of German May.
Hey, Don, from your friends and colleagues here at Gray Ridder & Graham, congratulations. Also, congratulations to the team you put together within the firm to work on this important case that led to this honor. We're proud of you.
We're going to turn back now to those awards based on nominations and the selection of our editors and publisher. But before we start with our next set of introductions, remember to socially interact with us by posting comments to #MLM2021MLA. The bottom of the screen is full of what is the new norm for virtual cheers, applause, handshakes, high fives, and hugs. Keep them coming. And now our Legal Champion Awards. We award these to plaintiffs or defense lawyers not based on the size of the verdict, but the importance of the principle or policy at stake. This year, we honor 9 attorneys for their legal champion work.
Our honorees for Legal Champion. In 2020, Platte County sought a declaratory judgment against UMB Bank, disputing their claim that the county was responsible for making up revenue shortfalls from the Zona Rosa retail park on municipal bond payments. Todd Graves and Dane Martin represented Platte County in the case.
When the Development Authority issued the bonds, there was a variety of projections made on revenue that would be generated from Zona Rosa. The interesting thing about this dispute is the shortfalls began to arise based on just e-commerce taking over general physical retail space. And so these issues all came to rise even before the COVID pandemic.
Platte County had no legal obligation to pay those bonds. It was something that if they came up short and the county commission decided they were going to pay them, they could.
Had UMB's claim stood, the county's long-term liability could have been as much as $40 million through 2032.
The trustee took the position that under the Constitution, it wasn't inappropriate for a county to bind itself, and several other positions that we did not think were correct, but much of the bond finance industry supported them in that position. Courts in Missouri have declared we don't, so there was a huge financial stake here on behalf of bondholders and the bond industry.
In August 2020, the Missouri Court of Appeals for the Western District affirmed the judgment in favor of Platte County. This result allows other municipalities to point back to this decision in the future.
In Missouri, it's crystal clear. It's an appellate order that now, removes any doubt as to the standard of the law. So any entity in Missouri is going to be able to take advantage of this immediately and concretely. I have no doubt that this case will be cited in many places around the country over the coming years.
In 2017, physician's assistant Mark Weisner was sentenced to 16 years following reports of sexual abuse from around 100 patients at Leavenworth VA Hospital. Daniel Thomas and Michael Kilgore represented 2 of the victims suing the U.S. government.
We wanted the court to award enough damages that they could buy private health insurance and never have to step foot inside a VA again.
While the defense argued that Weisner's abuse was unforeseeable and unrelated to his medical practice, Thomas and Kilgore said the VA's neglect allowed abuse to continue, even after reports were filed.
Mr. Weisner was abusing these patients in the course of conducting physical exams, and he had the ability to pass off this abuse to the patients as necessary medical care.
They're arguing we could have never foreseen this, but their expert is saying, well, it goes back to the 40s. And then also they had policies to address healthcare sex abuse. So it was foreseeable. They just didn't believe the victims.
While 82 of the victims received settlements of roughly $64,000 each, Thomas and Kilgore felt their clients deserved better. And on November 2nd, 2020, they were awarded with over $1 million in damages.
We were offered a similar deal, and we just didn't think that was fair for these guys and what they've been through. It validates that their government hasn't forgotten about them, that they believe them, and they're going to try to do what it takes to make it right.
With a trial and with the ability for the public to be aware of what they've endured and what they've sacrificed, we thought was important. And hopefully that and the results of these cases will make a difference.
Jonathan Irons was 17 when he was sentenced to 50 years in prison for first-degree assault, armed criminal action, and first-degree burglary in 1998. 21 years later, friend and advocate Reggie Williams made a sunshine law request to police, which led to a remarkable discovery.
And they found the report showing that they found a fingerprint on the inside of the screen door that did not match Jonathan's.
Kent Gibson and Taylor Rickard led the appeal, which garnered national attention due in part to the support of WNBA star Maya Moore.
Maya did a really good job of getting Jonathan's name out into not only local news, but national news. And people from all around the country kind of rallied behind Jonathan. Any court appearances, there were people from all over the country that would come in and sit in on them. So I think Maya's involvement was absolutely critical to Jonathan's release.
Through Kent and Taylor's efforts, it was revealed at trial that not only had the fingerprint evidence been suppressed, but the original report that contained it had been doctored.
It was pretty clear that somebody had taken a piece of paper and scanned over the bottom part of it. The bottom part that was on that report said that the fingerprint belonged to somebody that was not the victim and was not Jonathan. So the information that there was a fingerprint that belonged to an unidentified person was not available at the time of trial.
Gibson and Rickard prevailed, and on July 1st, 2020, Jonathan was released from custody. But there is still plenty of work to be done.
With modern technology and DNA, I think a lot of scholars now believe that between 5 and 10% of persons convicted of felonies are innocent. And that's a lot of people. When you see how many people are in prison in this country, that's thousands of people are in prison who are probably innocent.
In 2018, Rosemary Salerno was manager at the Zona Rosa Town Centre when she was asked to divert funds intended for charity into the company's operating expenses.
Ms. Salerno refused to participate in that and reported that information to the financial people at MPI, and she was subsequently terminated for that.
Athena Dixon represented Salerno in the wrongful termination suit that followed. When the jury awarded Salerno nearly $500,000 in damages under the Whistleblower Protection Act, MPI management then filed suit, alleging Salerno had approved fraudulent purchases.
She was sued for that, and it was such a small amount of money that it was just, it appeared to be very retaliatory, the reasons that it was brought. Especially there was evidence that they spent more than they would ever receive.
A Platte County judge ruled in favor of Salerno, and Dixon then filed a retaliation claim, a claim that led to a verdict totaling nearly $5 million for Miss Salerno, $4 million of which was in punitive damages.
Every time our general manager, Ms. Salerno, would Google her name, this lawsuit would come up, and one of the elements was fraud. In this situation, I think that we encourage the jury to send a statement that this is not tolerated, that you can't do this to employees.
As a prison abolitionist, what drives me is freedom. It's the freedom to be a citizen of the United States of America without, disparagingly being affected by this system. I would say that my main drive is to keep my people free.
Natasha Scruggs is a champion for the incarcerated, helping them understand their rights and making sure their voices are heard.
You have a rule that after you're incarcerated and after you're off of probation and parole, then you have the right to vote. So a lot of people do not know this. The reason why is because it varies from state to state. To have the most vulnerable people not have access to voting, that's a huge issue. And Black people in particular are disparagingly affected by this.
Along with voting rights, the right to protest is often the only means of civic expression. So when Natasha saw hundreds of protesters being arrested in Kansas City, she was compelled to step in, offering free counsel.
If you don't have an attorney, that's a downfall, and you're gonna pay for that. So I didn't want them to have to come out of pocket because they were fighting for something that everyone needs to be fighting for.
Natasha also started a law summer camp in 2016, helping create a new generation of advocates in her community.
My white counterparts had all of this training in secondary school and in grade school. They had mock trials, they had teams, they were wearing suits and things back in the day. And I was like, wow, like I said, I wanted to be an attorney since I was 5 years old, and I would have killed to do something like that, but it wasn't offered. And so I decided to offer that to my community, and I volunteered a week of my time in both cities to do that.
Sarah Bardol joined the Bar Association of St. Louis to meet attorneys in the area. But after learning about the St. Louis Attorneys Against Hunger initiative, her focus soon shifted to volunteering.
This community had this need, and we had these resources, so it really worked out where we were able to start these food distributions.
Sarah soon became a driving force for recruiting young attorneys to the cause. But rather than posting via social media, Sarah instead chose to engage volunteers more directly via email.
Reaching out and saying, oh, just a reminder, if anyone wants to come hang out and make sandwiches on Thursday. And those little, I think the actual fact that you're reaching out to people individually just makes it work.
Working with the Step It Up program, Attorneys Against Hunger has helped prepare and deliver thousands of meals weekly across the St. Louis area and beyond.
It really has pivoted, and it's more of like, I feel like I'm a recruiter sometimes, but exactly, there's so many different people who want to help, and that's the amazing thing. It's been so helpful to have a lot of young lawyers because they understand. I think everyone's learning to understand in the COVID times that you can't predict anything that's going on.
So long as hunger remains an issue in St. Louis, Sarah will be there to help the Attorneys Against Hunger initiative grow.
The pandemic made a pivot, but I also think that there is just a huge problem in our country and in St. Louis specifically with food insecurity. And once you're exposed to that, you can't forget it. And so I think it is something that will just continue to grow.
Next, we honor the year's most influential lawyers. Those Missouri lawyers who most influenced important legal events or issues in the past year. Remember to socially interact with us by posting comments to hashtag MLM 2021 MLA. Our most influential lawyers.
And now, our honorees for Influential Lawyer. In 2020, Brad Zimmerman began assisting with the drafting of legislation for HB 1771, a bill that would give tax relief in Missouri to first responders on 9/11 after the passing of one of his clients.
He was one of the first people to kind of drive to New York City. About 17 years later, he found out that he had cancer as a result of his work at Ground Zero.
Brad discovered changes to the federal tax code issued in 2002 for 9/11 responders, and realized that while other states had issued similar relief bills, Missouri had yet to do so. While the bill faced little resistance, it didn't pass without careful consideration.
These folks deserve kind of our thanks, however we can give it to them. But yeah, there was some convincing on the budget and also just kind of the mechanics of how does a tax refund like this work?
The legislation and its passage attracted media coverage, which brought welcome attention to Brad's efforts.
I think tax legislation probably falls under the radar for most people. So bringing this to light for people through the media was definitely a positive. So hopefully it's, just kind of one last, small or whatever size it is, one last benefit to these families to know that, the work that their loved one put in at such a kind of a terrible time in our country's history, that we all appreciate it.
Congratulations, Brad. It's a nice effort, a nice outcome for a great cause. So way to go.
Congratulations, Brad.
Congratulations, Brad. I didn't know you were such a big deal.
Congratulations, Brad.
Hey, Brad, congrats on a well-deserved award. Way to go.
Congratulations, Brad.
Congratulations, Brad. Well deserved.
Congratulations, Brad.
Brad, congratulations on your Missouri Lawyers Weekly Award. So well deserved.
Brad, congratulations. Great job. Congratulations, Brad.
Congratulations, Brad. Job well done.
Few would argue that Judge David Byrne's term as presiding judge of the 16th District Court has been easy. Only 30 days in, he was faced with managing a flooded Jackson County courthouse.
The water line that broke flooded about 5 floors of the building, totally took out of service 5 of our jury courtrooms and the supporting office space. What we were doing was trying to deal with keeping jury trials going, having 5 courtrooms out of service.
Still dealing with the aftermath of the floods, Judge Byrne was then faced with another set of challenges entirely, keeping cases moving forward safely while taking on pandemic conditions.
So we're playing musical courtrooms, moving people around. Then we're dealing with governmental shutdowns. Although, again, I will say I'm really proud of the fact that our court was open consistently throughout the pandemic. We've never been closed.
Then, an advocate group called KC Tenants protested the court's decision to allow some evictions to proceed amid the CDC moratorium. On behalf of KC Tenants, the ACLU then sued the court,
claiming that our court was not in compliance with the CDC order. We have stopped landlord-tenant actions and evictions when there was an enforceable executive order, such as the CARES Act or the CDC order, and we've complied in all respects with that.
With reconstruction on the courthouse due to be completed later this year, David can look forward to a less eventful 2021.
During my term as PJ, we had, from a biblical standpoint, we had floods, we had a pandemic, but the good news is there were no locusts that showed up in Jackson County, so the trifecta of challenges did not make it here, and I'm grateful for that.
So far, our awards have honored, in many different forms, the practice of law. Now we honor the business of law with our Law Firm Leaders Awards. These recognize extraordinary vision, innovation, and leadership during the year. And while there are many, many worthy nominations in this field, those we honor today rise to the top of that elite group.
Our honorees for Law Firm Leader. Since joining Armstrong Teasdale as a full-time associate in 1995, David Braswell has held leadership roles firm-wide, including leader of the Corporate Services Practice Group and member of the firm's executive committee. Today, he's managing partner, demonstrating extraordinary vision and leadership, under which the firm has grown substantially, opening 7 new offices across the country in less than 2 years, and bringing on more than 70 attorneys and staff in 2020.
It became apparent to me that in order for us to control our destiny going forward as a law firm, we were going to need to get bigger, and we were going to need to expand our footprint and our client base and diversify, and that's what we've done.
Under David's leadership, the firm adapted quickly and effectively to the COVID-19 pandemic, transferring more than 500 staff to working remotely in less than 48 hours before gradually adapting office conditions to allow them to return.
Our COVID-19 protocols that we have in our office are absolutely state-of-the-art because we invested a lot of time and energy studying best practices. And fortunately, we have a team of people who are willing to observe those strict protocols when they come into the office.
Armstrong Teasdale has not reduced salaries or furloughed any employees during the pandemic. But rather than simply maintaining the firm's operations, he also began writing daily emails to his staff, continuing to do so for the next 63 business days.
That's one thing I think we've done well. It's not just me, my practice group leaders. We're having happy hours, virtual happy hours with their teams, and our department heads and staff directors are doing the same thing. I love it here. I love it here. I feel like this is my family. It's my second home. People, when they come here, tend to stay. And I think that says it all about our culture.
For almost 5 years, Michael Downey has led Downey Law Group as the firm provides legal ethics, lawyer discipline defense, and risk management services to hundreds of lawyers and law firms throughout the state of Missouri.
I mean, there are about 20,000 lawyers in the state of Missouri, and I get a lot of calls because people will look and say, I've read the rule and I'm not sure what I can do, or I think I may have done something wrong. How can I fix it? And I spend a lot of my time trying to help answer those questions.
As well as helping its lawyer and law firm clients improve their marketing, operations, and client services, the firm also uses numerous innovations in providing services to those lawyer clients, including fixed fees and pay-what-you-want invoices.
Having an initial conversation where I help them do something the right way can solve a lot of large problems down the road. And so I really want to encourage people to contact me right away when they have an issue, instead of stumbling through it and creating more of a problem and then needing more help later. And it's interesting, last week I got a call from someone, I could tell you, I talked to that person for 15 minutes in 2016, I think, or 2017. And here they were in 2020 calling me back with a significant project they needed done.
In February of last year, Downey Law Group began offering free web-based ethics and elimination of bias CLE programs.
All Missouri lawyers need elimination of bias training. And we wanted to do a really good job of trying to help eliminate bias in the legal profession.
To date, more than 3,000 lawyers have registered for Downey Law Group's programs through the firm's Missouri Ethics CLE website. But Michael credits his team with his success.
Too often, lawyers will take the success of their firm as being their own success. And I think they need to recognize that it's better when the entire firm sees the success as a shared success, and really appreciates the benefits from that.
Shannon Johnson is a shareholder at Siegfried Bingham in Kansas City, Missouri. She has been practicing for nearly 15 years and has built her legal practice in general business and commercial litigation.
Came in as a senior associate at the time, and the next year made shareholder in 2013. And so I've been a shareholder there for about 7 years, and then this year was elected to our executive committee.
Shannon stepped into the leadership role for the plaintiff in S&H Farm Supply Inc. versus Bad Boy Inc.
Bad Boy terminated S&H's dealer agreement, and S&H felt like that wasn't done the right way, and so brought a claim for breach of contract and for breach of Missouri's outdoor power equipment statute.
This was a landmark case because it was the first of its kind tried in Missouri for the breach of that statute, designed to protect dealers from manufacturers who want to terminate their agreements. But it was also unique in that it was conducted under pandemic conditions.
We were basically having video piped into another courtroom because we couldn't have that many people in our courtroom. And then everyone was wearing masks the whole time except the witness. I was concerned about that and worried about kind of how the trial would progress and if it would still go smoothly, and I thought that it did.
Ultimately, the jury gave the plaintiff everything it asked for. But a large verdict wasn't all that drove Shannon and her fellow shareholder Greg Whiston to win. The case was previously handled by their colleague, attorney David E. Shea, before his unexpected passing in May 2020.
Having lost Dave Shea, who was just such a brilliant lawyer and just a funny and very kind person, aside from his career, I just really liked him personally. We wanted to jump in there and get this win for him.
John Kenny Hertz is a true visionary leader, creating a firm structure that rebukes the traditional associate and partner approach by finding partner-level attorneys and offering partner-level rates of compensation.
Most attorneys take home between 25 and 35% of their billable hour. You bill $300 an hour, chances are you're probably going to realize about $100 of income from that work. So we decided to beat that so that we could attract talent and grow faster.
Kenny Hertz Perry has grown from a 2-attorney business litigation firm to an 8-attorney one-stop shop for a diverse range of business clients.
We represent a number of financial institutions and are continuing to add practice areas that are complementary to our core competency, which we like to say is all things business related.
John is quick to jump into emerging and uncharted areas of law and allows his colleagues the tools and time needed to master these emerging areas.
We like to do things different, right? So that means that we like to look at new areas of law. When the constitutional amendment was first passed to legalize medical marijuana, so we decided to get into that.
This, along with John's confident delegations, empower attorneys and ensure clients receive quality counseling.
You've got to lead by example, but at the same time, making people not just feel empowered, but empowering them.
John's business acumen, leadership, and his genuine passion for the advancement of the lawyers that work for the firm has helped Kenny Hertz Perry continue to succeed and grow.
We grew revenue-wise, and we've added 3 more attorneys since then. Empowerment, collaboration, and positivity. And I think if we take those 3 things and put them in everything that we do, then not only are we fulfilling our own needs, but certainly fulfilling the needs of our clients.
At Spencer Fane since 2012 and a partner at the firm since 2016, Amy Missler focuses her practice on representing developers, investors, lenders, and borrowers in all types of real estate transactions.
I represent buyers and sellers of real estate. I do a lot of hospitality work. I buy and sell hotels. All of that continues in addition to this role.
On January 1st, 2020, Amy started her role as office managing partner for Spencer Fane's St. Louis office, helping achieve a surge of growth for the firm, despite a challenging year keeping the office connected amid the global pandemic. Amy began simply enough, messaging and emailing associates daily, then increasing the frequency of partner and associate meetings, before helping to create a series of virtual events for the office, including a time management class, virtual yoga, and a virtual cocktail making class.
We learned to make a really good sangria happy hour event. So one of our clients remarked that if the time management and yoga didn't work to reduce your stress, the last event was just to make a drink.
Amy is also an integral part of future planning for the firm, which now comprises more than 300 attorneys and continues to be a role model for women in the legal market.
To approach the situation, what you don't know, with humility and an understanding that that it's new, you're new in the job and new in the role. And, everyone that takes on the role is going to be a little different, approach things differently. And you just have to be authentic in yourself and throw things out and give it a try.
A former public defender with a long history in community support, Christopher A. Pickett has shown great dedication to diversity since his first days in his role as Chief Diversity Officer at one of St. Louis's largest and oldest law firms, Greensfelder, Hemke & Gale PC.
Some of the best things that have happened historically have been because of lawyers. Lawyers should also be on the forefront of ensuring that every individual that has an opportunity to work at your organization also has an opportunity to succeed.
2/3 of Greensfelder's associates and 40% of its officers are women, and Chris has helped the firm continue this success by hiring more diverse lateral associates and elevating diverse attorneys to officer-level roles.
Study after study after study shows that when you have teams that are diverse, either related to people of color, background, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability versus ability, those different perspectives make you more innovative. They make you more efficient. They make you better at your job for solving problems.
While 2020 presented unique challenges, Chris rose to the occasion by doubling down on efforts to support members of the legal community that are typically underrepresented, as well as making a conscious effort to keep his associates more connected.
And that's what I have tried to do. That's what the people I work with on these initiatives, we've made a point of being intentional about reaching out, contacting, communicating as frequently and as often as we can to ensure that those relationships continue and those positive interactions continue.
To this day, Chris continues to lead diversity and inclusion initiatives at the firm on multiple levels, but he couldn't have done it without the help of his colleagues and staff.
I think the most important quality is the ability to be humble. I think that leaders who believe they know the answer to every question, leaders that believe their way is the only way, they aren't leaders. Leaders are people that listen.
I started with the firm after I completed my court clerkship with the federal court in 1983, and I have not left.
Over the last year, Scott Sider has overseen great transitions at Levy Craig that have been incredibly positive for the firm. Scott made the key decision to devolve management competencies to shareholder committees for technology, marketing, and HR.
We're very, very fortunate. We have a lot of, to me, young lawyers that are very interested in not only the practice of law, but how you run the business of law as well. So it's really welcome help when you have people interested and capable of being involved with the firm, and it's a good way to train future leaders.
This created solidarity amongst shareholders who don't typically work together, and has also resulted in increased dialogue and participation with associates and staff.
It's primarily based on firm profitability. So it gets us all, if you will, kind of tritely, rowing the boat in the right direction together. And it's worked.
Scott has also brought in a new COO who is energetic and effective.
Sam's been terrific. Sam's, he walked in, I think his first start date might have been April 1. Yeah, and he's done a tremendous job.
These changes helped Levy Craig thrive and grow throughout the pandemic, allowing staff to work safely, remotely, and more effectively, even resulting in increases to billing and profitability.
Last year was the best year we ever had. The year before that was the best year we ever had. The year before that was the best year. We had a terrific 2020. Economically, for us, was another great year.
In 2008, Gregory Smith oversaw the merger between St. Louis-based Hush and Kansas City-based Blackwell Sanders.
We were about equal size. We were what I would characterize as sort of strong super regional firms. And we combined in 2008 and quickly added another firm, Welsh & Katz, that was a Chicago IP boutique.
First as CEO and then chairman, Gregory Smith has since piloted Hush Blackwell through many formative events, including several smaller mergers in Denver, Chicago, Texas, and Wisconsin.
We expanded into Houston. We've added Sacramento. And we've grown quite significantly, actually. In terms of revenues, we've grown revenues over the course of my tenure by about 50%.
He is also responsible for completely revamping the firm's structure by abandoning traditional practice areas for industry-based business units.
We observed in 2012 was that virtually every other professional service industry in the world went to market by industry group. And so it occurred to us that made a lot of sense for lawyers as well.
Gregory Smith's leadership helped sustain the firm through the 2020 pandemic. Among the steps he took was the establishment of The Link, a virtual office.
That has no geography. Everyone is equipped with a high level of technology, and there's this interaction, and there's organizational collaboration that's driven around that particular virtual office.
Gregory steps down as chairman in April 2021 and has been working with successor Catherine Hanaway over the last year since her election.
I've been able to give my successor a lot of advice over the course of the year. I'm glad to say, and I have complete confidence that this firm will be in equally good hands come April 1, without question.
Greg, congratulations from all your colleagues at Hush Blackwell. You've been a great leader, a great partner, and a great friend. In fact, seeing you win this award reminds me of advice you gave me years ago, which was keep your head down and keep your mouth shut. Actually, no, I'm sorry. That was advice from my mom, not from you. Greg, congratulations. Well deserved.
With a keen background in business and management consultancy, Patrick J. Whalen is the architect behind the unique model that saw Spencer Fane achieve an impressive 17.1% growth in 2020, running the firm with operational efficiency and no debt on the balance sheet leading up to the pandemic.
Having a real efficient operating model where we try to keep cost of our operations, cost of our management expense lower than the competition.
While increases in revenue have been consistent for over 7 years, the firm's continued growth has been part of Whalen's strategic focus on expanding into markets where clients have an expanding need for legal counsel.
We looked at the geographic areas that was in alignment with where we had particular expertise at depth and breadth, and then we married that up with a whole separate methodology showing where our clients and where our client industries were growing. And that's really what charted the course for growth.
Patrick remains focused on the culture he helped create with the committee of attorneys he chaired in 2019, a culture valuing humility, collaboration, empowerment, positive energy, and fierce resolve, which he credits with Spencer Fain's success and resilience.
But we didn't want to be like a lot of other organizations that talk about culture, but they can't really define it. So that's why we went through that work throughout the firm in 2019 and really have put us in incredibly good stead in confronting the pandemic collaboratively as a firm.
And so here we are. You've heard the incredible stories of so many attorneys we've honored today, those men and women who are making a difference in their communities, their profession, and their businesses. That goes doubly for the award of Lawyer of the Year, which honors achievements that shape the legal landscape in a significant way. We all owe our thanks to this year's Lawyers of the Year, but not nearly as much as Donald Doc Nash does. Doc Nash would almost certainly be sitting in prison today were it not for 8 years of work by Charles Weiss, Stephen Snodgrass, and Jonathan Potts of Bryan, Cave, Layton, Paisner. Over those 8 years, Charlie, Steve, and Jonathan put thousands of hours into winning Nash's freedom, often working nights and weekends on what was really a labor of love, not only for their client, but also for the practice of law and for the integrity of our justice system. Ladies and gentlemen, our Lawyers of the Year.
In 1982, when the body of 21-year-old Judy Spencer was discovered, Donald Doc Nash was initially questioned by police, but soon released without charge.
She was shot through the shoestring with a shotgun. He never owned or possessed a shotgun.
He was interrogated by the police because he was the victim's boyfriend, and they immediately tested him for gunshot residue, and he was cleared.
On behest of the victim's family, the case was reopened to examine DNA evidence in 2008.
That's when they found the DNA underneath the victim's fingernails, and he was immediately arrested.
Ordinarily, the DNA under one's fingernails, a live-in partner would not be remarkable, but that evening, before she went out drinking, she apparently washed her hair in the kitchen sink, and they claimed at trial that that would have washed all the DNA away, and the only way the DNA was there was because Mr. Nash had found her and killed her.
Based on this evidence, Nash began serving a de facto life sentence in 2009. Then, in 2012, Charles Weiss and Jonathan Potts were asked to look at the case, which they did on a pro bono basis aside from their usual practice.
Doc had a daughter, and he had already been convicted and tried. She got in touch with Josh Keyser, another one of our clients, a pro bono clients who was found innocent by the court, and asked if he would refer her to us. And then she got in touch with us, along with Doc's brother, Kenny Nash, and one of the sheriff's deputies, Tim Bell. And that's how we got involved.
Convinced of Nash's innocence, his counsel quickly sought to dispute the DNA evidence presented at trial, and so ordered a few tests of their own.
We then tested the shoestring for DNA, and there was so much DNA on the shoestring of hers, of the victims, it overwhelmed everything else, and that's the only thing it could get off of it. We also had the shoe from which the shoestring was extracted, tested, and there was an unidentified male's DNA on the shoe. It excluded Donald Nash.
Stephen Snodgrass turned his attention to the state witness who had stood by the fingernail evidence in 2008.
She announced in the deposition that she had changed her great effect opinion from great effect to some effect. And then based on the fact that you read our expert's report, and he had found a piece of research that shows how difficult it is to remove fingernail DNA.
The three then presented their findings to the court-appointed special master.
During the evidentiary hearing, we had testimony from 16 witnesses that we presented to the master. The state only presented one witness. And then after it was submitted, we waited for several weeks looking for a ruling. Ultimately, the master issued a 230-page long report that found that Mr. Nash was actually innocent of the capital murder and found multiple constitutional violations that required his release.
On July 3rd, 2020, the Missouri Supreme Court issued an order to overturn the conviction. Nash was immediately released from custody.
In most cases, that would actually be the end of the story. Almost inevitably, the prosecutor will not retry someone after they've been exonerated. And frankly, I think that's what we expected at the time. The charging decision goes back to the local prosecutor, and he ultimately did make the decision within the next 30 days that he was going to retry Mr. Nash for capital murder.
And we asked for an immediate trial, as quick as they could set it. And the judge set the trial for October, this past October.
After its own review of the DNA evidence and a new round of depositions, the prosecuting attorney said he could not ethically retry Nash just 1 week before the trial was set to take place.
When he got out of jail, he moved back in with his wife. They're living down in Beaufort, Missouri, which is near Union and Washington, Missouri. When we talked to him, he says, "You know what I'm doing?" He said, "I'm sitting on my front porch, rocking in my chair, enjoying life."
Charlie, Steve, Jonathan, on behalf of all of the litigators at Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner, I want to congratulate you for being named Lawyers of the Year. It's a great recognition for your work and one that's truly deserved. You make us proud.
Congratulations to our Lawyers of the Year and to each of our influencers, champions, advocates, leaders, and winning litigators. Thank you too again to each of our sponsors. As I said at the beginning of this program, none of this would be possible without their generosity. Please join me in again thanking them for their support. First, our VIP sponsors, Bryan Cave Leighton Paisner, Levy Craig, Downey Law Group, and Gray Ritter and Graham. Our celebration sponsors, Siegfried Bingham, Henrich's Law Firm, and our award sponsor, Hush Blackwell. Again, this event would not be possible without their support. And I also want to thank all of our guests today who interacted with us through hashtag MLM 2021 MLA and through chat. Keep the comments and the photos posting and trending for the next several days so we can continue the celebration just a little longer. I know we all look forward to the day when we can come together in person. But until then, thank you for prioritizing our celebration of excellence in a format that allows us to be together safely. Visit our website at molawyersmedia.com to watch the event again or to learn more about all of today's honorees. On behalf of Missouri Lawyers Media, thanks for joining today. We'll see you soon.
I would like to thank my family, my husband, Andy, my 3 kids, Nathan, Ellie, and Sam.
David Oliver has been a pretty big inspiration to me.
The 2 deputies who were very much involved in investigating the case over the years, Tim Bell and Steve Lawhead.
Alexi Agathocleus, Matt Willis, and especially my dear friend Linda Pendergraph.
I think Jonathan's advocates, Reggie and Sherilyn Williams.
Thankful to the firm for giving me a chance to work on something that's a little bit outside of what we would usually do. Also want to thank Representative Brenda Shields.
I am lucky to have an incredibly strong, talented, passionate team. But the other person I want to mention is my wife and my family.
So proud of not only our court, but all of our employees.
So I was winning an Oscar, I would, thank my husband and kids.
Thank Missouri Lawyers Weekly for this honor.
It never hurts to have Ken McLean in your corner, to be able to talk to him about trial strategy and so forth.
John Elliott, Dagmar Wood, and Ron Sheaver.
I just want to thank Missouri Lawyers Media for giving me this award.
Joellen Engelbart. She was a good friend, an amazing lawyer, and I appreciate her nomination so much.
Our law partner, Scott Britton Mellish, Margaret Goodman, Amber Carthy, and then I know my assistant, Diane.
I think this is a great thing for Missouri Lawyers Weekly to do, and I think it's important to recognize law firm leaders. And I'm glad that they have these awards and are hopefully encouraging lawyers to really try to look at how they lead their firms and to do a better job of leading their firms.